Follow the thread and become the generation that stops the climate change. That is quite a bold statement, isn't it? But we have to give it a try. According to the United Nations, we are the first generation ever that can end all poverty in the world. And we are the last one that can stop the climate change. The last generation that can stop the climate change. I will therefore share with you how we can contribute in the organization that we can impact most, our own home. It is quite straightforward and has a lot of common sense. You simply follow the thread and focus on the real value and reduce all the waste that we are not even aware of. Late 2011, my own home and everyday life was in chaos, and me and my husband, we fled. We fled into work. You know, it was a vicious cycle. As we worked even more, the home got even more chaotic. And finally, we just tried to conquer each day. Knowing that the home is the most important place on earth for the kids when they grow up, we were obliged to change. So we tried to understand the root cause, why our home was so reactive, chaotic, and messy, and why we had all these piles and waste. And when we started to ask why and look at the thread, we realized that we were doing lean. It was out of some kind of pure survival instinct, unintentional. But when we saw this, we saw some light in the tunnel, because I had seen the impact of lean in pharma factories around the world. So suddenly I saw a lighthouse in a dark ocean, and we decided we'll try to do this in a strategic way, implement it at home. So we simply took it back to the home where it once started. You see, it was in the late 1900th century when the emperor in Japan tried to industrialize Japan with commercial weaving in the home. Sakichi Toyoda, he was the son of a poor carpenter, and he saw his mother, his grandmother, and all of the other women in the village weave and use that heavy loom. Since he was an entrepreneur, he tried to do something about it, so he invented a better and cheaper loom. And then he started to produce cars, Toyota cars. And probably inspired from weaving in the home, we saw the production like a thread. The beginning was when the customer ordered a car, and the end was when the car was delivered and payment received. And he focused on all the value adding. This spread to the car industry. The Americans started to call it lean. It spread to all kinds of organizations. And when we took it back to our home, it inspired many other thousands of other homes around in the world to do it. So I think in some sense we closed the circle when we took it back to the home. When we decided to start, we said we have to understand all the waste of time, money, energy, and environment. So I became the time study woman for a couple of weeks. You know, I had a stopwatch and notebook on me for weeks. And let me give an example. When my daughter shouted, "Where is my dress?" I started a stopwatch. Or when my husband in panic looked for his car keys, I started a stopwatch. Or when I desperately looked for my lipstick. And guess how much we wasted in average per week? 700 minutes. That's more than 10 hours a week. But check yourself if you're there. We counted our environmental footprint. You know, we simply answer questions regarding the home, food, travel, all the things you believe you'll need and therefore buy on a footprint calculator on WWF. And if everyone lived like we did back then, we would need 8 planet Earth. You know, that's the whole solar system. We looked at our living area. That's the most expensive thing we have, whether we rent or own. And we wasted living area, 20% of our living area. I could continue forever, like the Niagara Falls, about all the waste I discovered in our family. But this is about the tools. This is about the contribution. This is about a solution. And it doesn't matter whether you are a single household, just moved together with your partner, have lots of kids, single parent, economic privileged or poor. Because even if on the surface seem very different, we all have dreams. We all have real or perceived lack of time, energy, and money. And we all have climate change. I'm proud to say that we have gone from 8 planets to 2. This is not enough because we don't have a planet B, but it's a beginning. In less than a year, we halved our expenses. We use 50% less money today than we used to do. We were 2 high-income persons who wasted a lot of money in what we thought was buying time, instead of really reflecting how we wanted to use our time. We use all our living area. You know, instead of rebuilding, renovating our home, in Sweden about 40% of all families with small kids renovate their home. And then quite often they need to renovate their marriage. So how is this possible? It sounds like the Holy Grail, doesn't it? But you don't need to search for it like the Grail, because you have it right in front of you all the time. It is as simple as this. Your home and everyday life are full of threads. They are everywhere. You just have to see them. The beginning of the thread is a need, and the end is when you actually meet that need. And the thread itself is how you do it, if it's value-adding or if it's wasteful, if you can reduce the waste or even transform the waste into value. And here, I talk about shared value, value for more than ourselves. We talk so much about competition all the time, but we can talk about contribution. I will share some threads for you so you start to see them, and then I'll introduce the tools to change them. Okay, can you see that this is the food thread, overall food thread, from what we buy or how we get the food to what we do with the waste? Is it, as for many in the privileged part of the world, pre-made food, direct from factory, on a plate in front of some kind of screen, and then 1/3 thrown on the tip? That's the statistic average, 1/3. Or is it from soil to a nice meal and back as soil? And the magic is that you can zoom in to a shorter thread. You know, you decide what you want to have the change. Maybe it's the how do I get the food? Or the everyday dinner, the most hectic part of the day for many people? Or what do I do with the waste? And this is kind of the magic with this. You decide yourself whether you want to have the whole thread, overall thread, or focus on a shorter. And this is not science, so do it with creativity and curiosity and be kind to yourself and the ones you live with. Think a little bit like Pippi Longstocking, you know, if you want, try to make boring things fun. If you want to skate on the scrubbers when you clean the floor, just do it. Or if you want to single the pancake in the air, just do it. Or another thread that sets the scene for the rest of the day, the morning thread. From the time you wake up until you're at work, is it just a tiring transportation from bed to desk? Or is it filled with value? Can you take the bike and see some beautiful things along the way? Or sit in a car queue with carbon dioxide around you? The cloth thread is another thread. You know, all the fashion clothes we buy and what we do with them when they are outdated. Actually, the whole textile industry, from fashion to furniture, is the second largest polluter after oil. This used to be my mother's. She had it in the 60s, it's 50 years old. And I remember how I longed to wear it when I was a little girl. And now my eldest daughter, she wants to have it. How many of the clothes we have today last for 3 generations? So this is about sustainability, but it's also about sustaining as individuals. Me and my husband, we saw our beer bellies expanding and muscles disappearing, and we tried to make the training more fun. And we thought like Pippi, and now he's doing triathlon, marathon, and soon Ironman. A previous problem becomes a passion. And that is quite often what happens. But, and this is important, don't try to do everything at once. Think that you have a lifetime, because this is quite often how the home feels like. Can you see that this is the home? Many untangled, unfinished, knotted threads stuck in a mess. And there are far too many escape mechanisms from this mess. You know, dedicate all your time to work as we did. Divorce this mess and maybe get another mess. Or, buying a bigger house and get a bigger mess. Or be more present in planning next holiday than in everyday life. Or just give up. But please don't. Instead, take thread by thread and untangle in a long-lasting way and think that you have a lifetime. And you change this with Kaizen, and that means continuous improvements. That you not only see a problem as something negative, but as an opportunity in disguise. Can you see that this is an opportunity in disguise? We realized that we had a lot to win to change our laundry thread. And that is a little detail, you might say, but the devil is often in the detail. And yes, and I will show you the 5 steps in Kaizen with our laundry thread. So you will now follow. And you see, when you untangle one, it has an impact on the rest. You will now follow this little beautiful dress on its way to be ironed. And it's 5 steps in Kaizen. The first step is to understand how the current thread looks like. And please try to identify all the waste during this thread. And it's also important to understand why it looks like it does. And then you use 5 why, because if you only ask why once, you come to the symptoms. And if you ask too many, you come, to Big Bang and the existence of God. But about 5, you come to the real problem. Okay, this is quite embarrassing. I have to go deep into the pile here so you understand how it looked like. Step 1, understand the current thread. First, the little dress was in a pile in one of the kids' rooms. And the pile, it prevented the kids from playing there, so all their toys were moved around in the house. After 5 days and lots of frustration, it was moved to the laundry basket in the bathroom, where it stayed for about a week. When it overflowed, I took the basket down 2 stairs to the basement, to the laundry room, and tossed it on the floor and ran away the quickest I ever could. It wasn't starting the machine what I fiercely feared. It was starting to sort that huge pile that made me die for an excuse to escape. So the little dress could be there for 5 days until 3 weeks. And then it was missed a lot of times. We maybe bought a new dress because we couldn't find it around all the piles. And then finally we washed it. And when it was dry, it was moved to a beautiful chest where we had all the iron clothes waiting to be ironed. The things at the bottom hadn't been ironed for many months. Quite often the kids grew out those beautiful new clothes before they even had it more than once. And finally, when we had ironed it, it was moved to a little IKEA bag and got up on the second floor, waiting to be hung in the closet, which rarely happened. So the turnaround time was about 40 days. We had 20 piles of clothes everywhere. We searched for clothes and we bought a lot of duplicate and triplicate. So we needed a change. This was the first step. The second step, define the dream scenario, how you want it to be. The third step is define and design the new habits, what you need to do to get to that dream scenario. The fourth is start doing it the same week, because otherwise you have another unfinished thread hanging around. And the fifth is follow up. Researchers say it takes about 30 days for a new habit to establish. So after 30 days, follow up and see how it works. And don't forget to celebrate. We have continued to untangle many threads like this throughout the years, and what we have seen is that we consistently move from a feeling of frustration to a feeling of flow. Because you can't fight your way to flow, but you can create the conditions to get there. And that is actually what happens. We work in average 20% of our lives. And yes, now I talk about rich, privileged countries with no child labor and high life expectancy, and also high ecological footprint. Our home is where most of our life is happening. It has a huge impact. If we could move our home, our footprint from 8 to 2, then we all can do it. And we did it without losing anything in life quality, rather winning. Our home is where we meet our survival needs. Our home is where we eat, sleep, and rest. Our home is where we should feel secure and loved. If we want to have equal, sustainable societies, we simply have to start with the micro-organization that matters most. It's simply about following the thread, and we can stop being that threat to the planet and ourselves. Most of us in this room probably use around 4 to 5 planets. Imagine if you all could reduce that to 2 or even 3 within a year. It is reachable, it is realistic, it is responsible. Imagine if you all could tell our friends and family how easy it can be with small sustainable steps. then we continue to spread that idea about, and we create a continuous commitment to contribute. Let us give it a try. Let us stop dreaming and start being that generation that stops the climate change.